You're from Sioux Falls. Talk about your youth a little bit. Racing didn't start for you at too young an age there.
In my family, I'm a first generation racer. Both my grandpas were truck drivers, and I just kind of grew up in a truck shop as a mechanic, grease monkey, I call it. We started coming down here like when I was 10, so it was like 1985, and Doug Wolfgang was our hero, of course. We're all coming around and chasing him around. My mom went to elementary school with him, so we had a pretty good connection with him. When he seen us, he knew our family, and we didn't spend much time with him, but at least he knew who we were when we signed autographs and stuff. So, I never really even dreamed about driving one. I just liked coming to watch and liked working on stuff. And, it's just a dream come true, to actually get it all to come together, this late in life, and look back and think that I never even had the dream to start with, so it's pretty cool.
Were you going to the races at Huset's and stuff?
Yeah, but not every week. Our big thing was to come down here, the week of August, and the rest of the time we always had a dirt bike or a three-wheeler or four-wheeler, when they came around, and we just kind of hung around home and did our thing, with the trucking. Dad was out of town all the time, and there wasn't a lot of racing. We just weren't racers, we just had a bunch of other friends, mutual friends that came to the Nationals, so we jumped in when I was about 10 and made several trips after that, and it just kind of took off.
Who were your heroes when you came down to the Nationals? Who were you watching?
Basically just Doug, because of the personal relationship that we had. I didn't hardly know who Steve Kinzer was, and I definitely never cheered for him. We were always wanting the Wolf, and there was a couple of those races where he came through the field, in the Weikert's car, and you don't remember it exactly, but I definitely remember all those guys that I was with. They were liquored up a little bit, and they were howling. It was like, holy crap, these guys are wild. So it was fun to grow up, and to watch it all happen. But it's even more fun to kind of follow in his footsteps and try to keep up with some of the stuff that he did.
Now you came across driving in kind of a strange circumstance with your boss there, if I remember right.
Yeah, what I was doing, I was working on trucks, and in 8th grade, I was already pretty much doing it full time. Every chance I could, I was at the shop washing trucks or greasing trucks, whatever it was, and had my dirt bike. And it was 2 days out of the 9th grade, and I needed a master link. It was a Sunday morning, and I didn't have, but there's a rock quarry down near John Morell's in Sioux Falls, and there was a motorcycle. We were in a drought, and they had it all pumped out, and there was a motorcycle laying down in the bottom of this quarry. It was about a 35-foot cliff, and me and my buddy went down there on his bike. I was on the back, and we got down there, and I crawled down, and the chain wasn't no good or whatever, but there was another piece on there that I wanted, so I sent him home to get some more tools, and he took a long time, so I started to crawl out, and when he showed up, he couldn't see me. The rocks were so steep, and he was so afraid that, I could see his shadow in this other rock that came back, but I was near the top, almost all the way up. He hollered, and I was like, dude, I'm right below you. I'll be up. Just give me a second. And like the next rock I grabbed was loose, so I fell. We all say 35 feet, and I'm sure it was every bit of that. Maybe 30 to 35. But anyways, when I landed on like some pink granite, that was all kind of busted up from when they dynamited back in the day, and it must have just kind of like splashed out like water would or something, and I think I landed on my side, so my shoulder and my hip, must have taken the blow. My head didn't hit the ground, but it busted all my ribs, my liver, kidney, spleen, all that stuff got damaged, so I was in the hospital, and when I was in the hospital, the owner of the truck shop bought a sprint car, so when I got out, then we started working on sprint cars and going racing, so I did it through high school, and my senior year, I was 17 years old. I was the youngest kid in class, and he let me drive it, so just a hot lap deal. And it wasn't long after that, a competitor of ours came and asked him to build him an engine, and he took that and immediately put it to work and said, hey, look, I'll do that for you, but I would like to keep the car in our shop, and I also would like you to let Clint drive the car on Friday night. So that guy didn't even think twice. He said, heck yeah, no problem. So we took his car and sanded it all down, repainted it, and kind of touched it up, gave him an engine, and it took off from there. It's really fun because his name's Ross Skank, and he comes to the Nationals. I don't really see him throughout the year, but this year after the 360 Nationals, he's been in the campground dang near every night with us after the races, and you can just see it. He's so proud to just be a small part of what happened, and to get the ball rolling.
Absolutely, and that gave you big dreams at that point in your life.
Yeah, from there, then we definitely were thinking about racing for a living. I told all my friends, this is my college education. You guys have fun. When I get done racing, we'll see who wins the race, So I have a few friends that kind of wasted their college away. They went, they graduated, but yet they're out just kind of working for a normal check. They definitely could make that money without the education, I never really got this to pay, but, the self-satisfaction and the inner lock that it's created on our family is so cool. I mean, you could never ever purchase it or figure out a way. I mean, to lock. I mean, when Clint Garner shows up to the racetrack, I'll bet easily we can say 20 people, but depending on the race, like here, I think there's 50 people, or more that came from Sioux Falls just to kind of be a part of what we do, and it's really neat.
Yep, absolutely, and. You made that decision not to go to college, and you went on the road a little bit too, didn't you? At that point in time.
Yeah, I graduated in '93, and I started racing that year, and raced 3 nights a week until 2000. Well, in 2000, my racing was pretty stale, and we were good, but not great. We hadn't really bought a race engine yet. We were kind of doing engines out of Sioux Falls, and it's not that there's not a machinist in Sioux Falls, but there's nobody that's really keeping up with the technology of what it takes to keep up with the southern states or the eastern states or even the far west, But right here in the Midwest, there's not a lot of guys that are up to par, with the rest of the country, So in 2000, I parked my car and called Guy Forbrook to see if I could get a job. And he was a little leery. He didn't really want to give me a job right yet. He said, get a job. Show that you want to do it, and maybe you can end up here, So he gave me a couple phone numbers, and, I ended up in Wisconsin with Scott Young. Scott's brother was working for the Vibrant car out in California, and that's where Guy sent me, was the Vibrant car, and they weren't interested in either. They never heard of you, and they think you're just going to come and go. So I went with Scott and, went out on the road and met some people. The crew chief that I ended up hooking up with, I met in Dallas one night after the races. Everybody had went out, and there was a couple girls from Sioux Falls that were selling programs with Gibby. So when I was out, they were there and we were hanging out. Well, they introduced me to Robert Hubbard, who is one of Doug Wolfgang's mechanics back in the 8D car. So, I explained to him what I was doing and told him that I wanted to do it, and the team I was with didn't really have the finances to do it, and he kind of just acted like in one ear and out the other, and I was like, well, whatever. And it wasn't very much longer. I'd have to look at the schedule to figure it out, but we were at Lernerville standing in the pit gate line, and he come and found me and said, hey, are you still wanting to do something different? And I was like, sheesh, yeah, man, if you got anything that you could possibly help me with, I would love to go with somebody that had a Featherlight and several engines, So he said, give me a couple weeks, and I think we might have a deal going. And I ended up going with Ricky Logan, which was good. I mean, Ricky and I still are great friends. I mean, we've had several different encounters in life. He gave me an apartment to stay in when I first started coming down here, during the summers. And, we're buddies, the whole time he's in New Zealand, we're emailing and, just kind of staying in touch. So then Ricky's deal... Well, it wasn't Ricky's deal so much as Dean Jacobs. They had a guy crash the truck, and Hubbard was friends with all those guys. So we left Ricky, and we went to work for Dean Jacobs on the Holbrook car. And so in the first year, I was with 3 teams. And one night at Terre Haute, Hubbard and I, Hubbard broke the water truck. They couldn't get it to open up. He was hammering on the back of it, and got the water truck busted, and water was running all over. So he hollered at that guy to take off driving and spread that water as fast as he could. So he did, and they still flooded the track. Well, they ended up taking all the wings off, and I got to drive one that night, So I went out and wheel packed the track. That was the first time I ever got to go on the track with Jack Hodenshield and everybody else, and it was pretty neat. So then later that night, as we're working on the car, I must have changed a dozen torsion bars that night. We were parked next to Steve Kinzer. I know that's the night that gave me the opportunity that came next in the off season of 2000, in between 2000 and 01. Then Doug Wolfgang called me in the winter, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh, why? What? What are you calling?" And he said, "Steve Kinzer just called and wanted to know who you were and if you were worth the shit." Excuse me. And I was,
you're all right.
I was like, I don't, what's he want, And he said, "Well, I think he wants you to work for him." And I was like, "Dude, I'd love to work for Steve Kinzer, And he's like, "Well, let me give him a call back and I'll get you guys hooked up." And so I ended up going out with Steve in 2001, and I didn't make it long. There was one kid on the crew that I just didn't see eye to eye with. His dad and Steve went to high school together, and same thing as Forbrook did to me. When that kid wanted to go on the road, Steve said, "Look, go get a job elsewhere, and maybe I'll give you a job." So it was 9 years later when Steve hired him, and that was the year also that Steve hired me. Well, when we got there, it was just a headbutt, So I pretty much asked Gherkin if he'd send me home. I said, my dream is not to work on race cars and run around and act like I have money. I want to race. I really came here to kind of spy on you guys. I want to beat you. So, he kept me around a couple more weeks, and eventually he called me in the office the next time we were going to leave the shop. I went through California and Devil's Bowl and Vegas, and we got back. There's a little gap in the schedule there, so I worked out the shop, and right before we were ready to leave town, and he called me in the office, and he's like, "Hey, look, I think I made a decision." And I was like, "You're letting me go home, aren't you?" And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead. You're good. I'll get this." And so I went home, jumped in a race car, another family's race car, and at Houston's that year, I think there was 21 races, and I won 10 of them, So I didn't really get better as a driver while I was gone, except for all of the experience I got from sitting in the stands or the pits with the World of Outlaws mechanics. I learned so much about patience and taking your turn when it's time to go, and just some of the stuff like building the race car, squaring the rear end. I didn't know if I was doing it right or not. Well, once I got out there and hung out with those 3-4 teams, it was pretty obvious we had a good grasp on what was going on building the race car and stuff. So just a lot of confidence when I came home, and the engine I had was good, and and I went back racing pretty much full time. But from 2001 to 05, I ended up going from Kinzer the following spring. Then I just did springs. I'd go down to Florida and do the, by April, whenever it's time to go race, and then I'd come back home. But I did Jason Sides and Tyler Walker, and I ended up with Sammy, and I got a lot of friends, from working on the road just in the springs. I got to go do some Silver Crown stuff, and Carl Edwards was part owner of the team out of Memphis that I was working for, and so I got to meet Carl and Carl's brother and Ricky Stenhouse. I know quite a few of those guys, and it's pretty cool, just to be around, and to not many people can say that they're best friends or real good friends with Doug Wolfgang, and you work for Steve Kinzer, and Sammy Swindell drove your car, and so I'm pretty proud of the little bit of a story that I've created.
What I haven't asked you a question in a while.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. What were some of the lessons you learned, especially from, you told me about an experience with Steve that you learned about, as a youth you wanted to do this full time, and now you didn't. You've told me a couple stories about moments where you realized you're probably not going to do this on a full-time basis.
Well, the biggest thing that happened was there's no money in it. When I was with Steve, he did good. Or the year before that, when I went to the banquet with Dean Jacobs, Steve won the championship that year, and when I was with him, I was talking to him about it, and he said that he made $400,000 racing, but it cost all of that and then some. He said, "I sold $1 million in T-shirts though." So it's there's not too many people that can sell that many T-shirts. There's a lot of guys out here trying to sell T-shirts, but Steve, Sammy, Shots, some of the real guys that have done a lot of stuff, but man, I couldn't stand thinking about not having no money. There was a time, I don't remember exactly where I was at. I think we were in California at Chico, hanging out at the campfire or whatever, eating. It wasn't even a fire, it was lunch before the races at a camper, and Jack Hodenshield was there, and Dean Jacobs, and we were talking about life and retirement, and man, those guys didn't have a plan. They pretty much both looked at each other and laughed and said, "We don't know what we're gonna do." And Hodenshield ended up saying he was a pretty good pool player. I was like, man, you guys are nuts. You're risking your life every day. And then, so when Mark Kenzer went home, and and then like I say, I'm good friends with Dean, and I talked to all these guys, and as life goes on, they've all are putting a lot more. Jason Myers. I mean, I don't know Jason Myers, but I don't think he went home because he's not a good race car driver. I don't think he could be a champion. He went home to create a life, a retirement and a family and stuff. You can see now he's kind of tiptoeing back into it, and I think he might be here next year for the Nationals. But a guy really needs to think about a retirement in my eyes.
Yeah, you also told me one time about the year Sammy had channel lock and how that didn't cover near his expenses that he had.
Yeah, the when I was working on the Silver Crown car in Memphis, Sammy didn't have a pit crew, and he was racing Kevin. He was working for Forbrook as a driver, and he they subbed me out to Sammy, and they asked me, approved me. They asked if I wanted to do it, and I was like, heck yeah, So I went out, did like 2-3 races with Sammy, and we were in line at Eldora, sitting behind the JD Byrider Danny Lasowski car, and we were talking about money and making a living at it and da-da-da, and Sammy's like, dude, this is my last year helping Kevin, I'll help him forever, but we're not going to be buying diesel fuel and tires and da-da. He kind of pointed up at Lasowski's trailer, and he's like, dude, if Tony Stewart drops him right now, he is up a creek, I mean, you got to have a better plan than this, he said, he started talking about his channel lock thing from the couple, in 2000 when I was on the road. I watched him crash at Bristol, and I told him about that, and he said that he had a full engine deal, a full tire deal, and did okay racing, and still had to get $50,000 out of his own pocket. He said there is absolutely no money in this, and I can't fathom spending another dime on it. Life needs to keep growing money instead of spending money trying to keep things going. So he just kind of gave Kevin a few years of a real good effort, and it worked. I mean, Kevin was living in Charlotte, and I think he's still going to figure out a way to make a living off of racing. But once I heard that, from Sammy, if he can't make it happen with a channel lock sponsor and an engine, channel lock had given him a bunch of money too, and an engine sponsor and a full tire deal, and like, man, if he can't make this happen, there's no way that I'm ever going to make it happen.
Well, getting back to your driving now, it's pretty evident that you have talent. I remember the first night you came to Knoxville, it was in a 410, and you're one of the few drivers that has won here in a 410, a 360, and a 305. But you were here the first night. I think it was for Twin Features night, and I think you finished in the top 10 of both features your very first time here at Knoxville, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, all those stories, I mean, I'm glad that you remember them, because I would never get up here and be able to come up with those stories. I know it took you a long time to gather all those stories out of me, but Hubbard is from Memphis and good friends with Jason Sides, and I worked for Sides after the fact, but at the time, Hubbard and I don't know, we were just talking on the phone and stuff, and I told him about wanting to come here and this and that, and he called me up one day and asked me if I wanted to go race double features. I was like, yeah, man, why? What do you got? And he's like, if you can drive to Fargo, meet Sides, he's going to borrow us his Mopar, and we'll put it in your car and we'll come back down. Well, it was quite a bit of work, just going to Fargo and getting it was one thing. Then I got home and the Mopar didn't fit in the car, so I had to go to Wolfgang's and weld it up and change things around. And, we got it in there, and Hubbard brought me down here and put me on the front row of a heat race, and I don't know, I might even won that first heat race, and I went out in the feature. It was a nice kind of muddy racetrack, which was good for somebody that had never been here with a wicked engine, So I was running around out there, and I don't remember where I was at on the track, but it was near the top 5. I was really doing good, and man, I couldn't hold my head up. Jeez, my throttle, my brain, everything wanted to go, so I was doing it, but my head kept just falling out of the chair. I got in after the race. I ended up losing several spots at the end of that race, and I got in the pits, and I was sitting there kind of catching my breath, and everybody's like freaking out, wanting to know what to do, and I didn't have no answers. The car wasn't that bad, and just thinking, how in the heck can I hold my head up? I got to figure out. This was before the big seats, and I went and grabbed my tennis shoes and I taped one of them to my head net, and then I kind of got in there with my helmet on, and we taped another one to my seat, so I was kind of like sitting how I thought I raced, and so then in the second feature I was all taped up with tennis shoes hanging off my seat and my headset, and so then I could kind of hold my head up or whatever. My seat and my tennis shoes helped hold my head up, so it was a little better, but it's still a lot of G-forces. It kind of reminded me of my first races, where when I first started rolling around the track, in a race car, it felt like you're really going fast, but you're not. They're lapping you 2-3 times. But the G-forces, when I was rolling around there that first night before Knoxville, like when I first started, like your whole world's crooked. You're trying to go in a circle and everything is so cattywampus. I was like, how in the world? Well, it only took about 10 nights and everything kind of, I don't know what happened, but that first night, man, everything was like at least 45 degrees. I couldn't see what the heck was going on, but same thing. You just keep trying to stand on the gas. For some reason, the guy just wants to go fast, so, but it's been awesome.
Yep, lot different than Huset's, where you started stuff.
Yeah. Huset's, it took a long time to figure out the differences. One of the best lessons I got, I was racing Mark Kinzer at the Nationals, and I qualified pretty good, so I was back in the back, and I didn't even know it, but we were duking it out for the B main start or the C main start, and it was like 9th place or 8th place we needed. I didn't know that. I thought top 4 or break, so we were going end for end, sliding each other, and I was doing it with him. Well, one time down here in 2, he stopped me, or he got me to wing down, and it screwed me up, and by the time I got my car stood back up, he was all the way into 3, and then I learned you can't wing them down. Well, at Huset's, you wing them down every corner. You're kind of just, like I tell the kids that I try to help here, or even at Huset's, you're at Huset's, you're driving a car. You kind of can steer it and sling it and just whatever happens, a lot of throttle. Here, it's a lot more like you're flying, you're like flying a little video game, like flying a jet through the mountains. You have to keep your wings just perfect. You can never, spin your jet sideways. Your speed will go from 350 to 58, and then it takes you 3 days to get going again, so... I just really pay a lot of attention to sailing the wing straight and never ever bending it, and I can't emphasize that enough when I'm trying to help the kids that do find the gumption to come and ask for it. I just kind of recite everything that Doug Wolfgang taught me, plus some of the stuff that I've learned, and it's been fun kind of spreading Doug's message. He made me work for it. When I asked something, he'd ask me questions back, and by the time I left, I felt about an inch tall. But it's one way of teaching somebody. I don't do that. I kind of just blurt it all out, and when I walk away, I think they're thinking, holy crap, how am I supposed to take all that in? But they come back, and I just recite it to them again, But Doug had a different way of doing it. He definitely made me work for it.
Another guy that's been real influential on you is Al Parker out of Newton with his engines, and you really took off here about 7-8 years ago in the 360 class, and people should know you're a guy who works 12 hours a day, a lot of days, and all week long up in Sioux Falls. You can talk about that business a little bit, Midwest Excavating, because I know your responsibilities there have really gone up over the years.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people that get to race, and I don't know, I shouldn't even say this, but a lot of the kids that come up and go, they've got money, they're wealthy, in junior high school, I don't know if they, a lot of them might not even have had to work, and if it did, it was because of just trying to teach some stuff. I worked for school clothes and lunch money, I've been working full time since the day I started, and it's pretty cool that I got to race and that I get to do this, but the amount of work that goes into making a full-time job and then finding time to do this also, is pretty crazy, So the company that I've landed in now is my father-in-law's business, and 3 years ago, I say gave us his business, but the only reason I say that is because he didn't make us go to the bank. He's financing it, and me and my brother-in-law, my wife, and her cousin are trying to run it. We've got 15 employees, and we dig about 250 basements here, mostly new housing in Sioux Falls. I mean, that place is just booming. You know, I come down here and I talk to some of the excavators, and they're like, man, there's nothing to do. I'm like, come to Sioux Falls. I mean, we got 2 wicked hospitals, and there's stuff just going on like crazy. So I got my phone shut off right now, but at 6:45 this morning, the phone started ringing. We've hauled, I think we've hauled over 20 loads this morning. You know, I got 5 dump truck drivers calling me, and I got 3 operators, excavator operators calling, and this has all changed in the last 2 weeks. My brother-in-law, he's 5 years older than me, so he's 45, died in his sleep, had a heart attack, and he was taking all the phone calls and then kind of passing the head scratchers down to me, and I was out in the field doing the sewer repairs and the garage additions or the new shop out behind the house, you know, just kind of the smaller stuff. And he was doing the new basements and the trucking. Well, now I'm doing it all, you know, and it happened a week before the Nationals, so I was thinking, oh, shoot, I'm not even going to get to go to the Nationals. And Al's all revved up. He's wanting to go racing, so I pretty much just told every contractor I talked to at the funeral and everybody that called and everybody that this is what I've done my whole life, and this really means a lot to me, and if you can just bear with me, I'm going to go racing for a couple weeks. I'll keep the phones, and I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen. And, you know, knock on wood, so far everybody's been pretty understanding, and also I've taught them about who I am and what Knoxville Raceway is, and a few of them watched the race the other night, you know, and they've never ever watched a race, so they actually called me back the next day excited that I wasn't at work and that I was down here trying to keep the, you know, the racing deal alive, you know. That I got one guy this morning, he's like, are you done racing yet? We could sure use you back home, you know. So, you know, we'll get back home here next week and get back to work and figure out the new landscape of the business, you know, without my brother-in-law, and it's definitely going to be a life-changing experience.
Yeah. Getting back to Al Parker a little bit, you've probably been one of the best things for his business. Since you were winning here, everybody wants one of those Parker engines.
That's a really cool story too. You know, throughout my deal, I always thought getting a 410, and I wanted a Featherlight, and I wanted all this stuff. You know, I wanted to spend $1 million. And once I got the 410s and figured out how hard it was, and then I put myself up against the guys that race all the time, I quit winning. I was winning 10 races a year for years, you know, and all of a sudden I'm not winning at all. And I can't even run top 10, you know. So we were down here trying. I bought an engine from Jason Sides, and then I bought another engine from Tyler, not me, my father-in-law. I couldn't afford to put the air in the tires, you know. But eventually, it's just weird. My dad, I was fueling the engines, and it was a struggle. I think that was the biggest problem, was I didn't have them running right. Well, my dad was standing down in 2, and he just like found an empty pickup with one dude in it and said, hey man, can I stand in your truck? Yeah, sure. Boom, boom. Next thing you know, we figure it out, you know, after a few weeks of it, it's Al Parker. And we didn't even really know who Al Parker was. And he said, you know, if you guys want, I could maybe help you get your engine running and stuff. So about the time he came and helped get it running, we had a Westmar that we bought from Tyler Walker. Tyler called it number 5, and it was like really good. So Al came and helped tune on that number 5, and it really got fast. You know, at the same time, I was getting pretty good at standing on the gas. Well, we blew it up, you know, from all the misfueling or the bad fueling that I'd been doing to it. And once he put the proper load of fuel in it, we blew it up, and he rebuilt it. And, you know, we got a few wins out of here. But, yeah, one time one of those engines was down, and I was going to get some parts. Our parts store at home, Rosie's Raceland, is like a half hour from home. So I was driving there, and of course not working. I'm dreaming about racing. So I called Al, and I'm like, hey, how's it going with the engine, you know? And he told me, you know, the parts this and da-da-da. And I don't know, I must have tried to apply some pressure or something or some heat, and he snapped. He's like, look, dude, you come get your stuff out of my shop. I could give a crap less about your engine. He said, I got $65,000 in bad checks in the drawer, and every single one of them's from 410 Racers. It's a joke, and da-da-da. And I was like, whoa. You know, and I just kind of was speechless, you know, and I was like, what the heck, you know. And then right before we hung up the phone, he said, I'll tell you what. He's like, if you want to race 360s, I'll build you an engine. I'll own it, and we'll take these 410s and crush them, you know. He's like, these things are a joke. I was like, oh, wow. let me think about that, So I called him back the next week, and we were talking, and of course we weren't talking about getting the 410 together. I was thinking more, okay, what talk more about this 360 deal, and he already had stuff, He had Hesmer when Hesmer was here, and he put us together a 360, and man, it's just been awesome being a part of his team. His business, when I first met him and he taught me about, all he did was race engines. I was like, are you kidding me? At home, these guys are building like tractor engines and semi-truck engines, and then like sliding a race engine in at night. And he's like, no, dude, there ain't no semis coming in my shop. There's not even one diesel part. It's boat racing, drag racing, mud drags. And I was like, wow, that's just crazy. This guy's making a living off of race engines only. I couldn't even believe it. Now I get it. He's so busy, But so we take off rolling, and, of course, I got to know Sammy. And, one day I was installing water softeners. I'm a plumber, too. After I couldn't get my hands clean for my senior pictures, I was like, yeah, this is over. I can't do this. So I went plumbing, and I was building new houses, and I was installing water softeners. After I came home from the road, I kind of found this little deal. And I'm driving about an hour north of town, and Sammy calls, and I was like, "Oh, jeez, what's up?" And he's pretty slow talking. I didn't know what he wanted, and he was just kind of quiet, not even saying much, And so I said, "What's up?" I said, Houston's was coming. I was like, "You need some help at Houston's?" And then I got him talking. He's like, "No, man, actually," he's like, "I was wondering, can I drive your car at the Masters?" And I was like, "Whoa." I said, "I don't know, dude." I said, "It's not my car, and actually nobody on my team is even hardly Swindell fans, So I said, let me make a couple phone calls and I'll check into it. So I called my father-in-law, and of course he's like, whatever you think, it's your deal, and da-da-da. And then I called Al, and he was the exact same way. And Al was even maybe a little hesitant, like, really, are you sure that's even close to, are you thinking right? And he by the time we hung up, he said the same thing. He's like, if you want to do that, I'll do it with you, So we came down here, and Sammy won, Well, once him and Al hooked up, it was over. I was out of the picture, and them two took it all the way to the top. They were out running the World of Outlaws, quick time, and they had a lot of fun together. A lot of long phone calls, and so it's made Sammy and I's relationship stronger. And not only did I sell engines for Al, but once Sammy Swindell went out and started doing that, then it definitely blew up, and it's really busy up there right now. He's got race cars. Sowald's up there, and Delansky. There's just numbers. When we race here on Saturday night, Al works. He calls it 3 shifts. From 7 to 5, he works with the guys, kind of just managing the shop. From 5 to 10. He runs the machines. He does the blocks and kind of parks stuff where he wants it parked for when the guys show up in the morning. And then from 10 to 12, 1 o'clock, then he goes up to his office and he does paperwork, So on Saturday nights when we come here, he kind of just hangs with us, and we'll have a couple beers. And we're usually the last car to leave the pits, like every time. And it's so fun because he starts taking phone calls before we start racing on the East Coast. And as we race through the night, at the end of the night, he's tuning engines on the West Coast. He tunes all of his engines over the telephone, and that's the best thing about his engines is he's on the phone nonstop helping all these guys, So we know the weather coast to coast, and those guys get to benefit from some of the stuff that he learns from working on my car here, and we learn from some of the stuff that they, it's just really a neat deal, what we've created there with Parker Engines. And he has no problem slapping me on the back and saying, this has got a lot to do with what you've done for me, So it's been really fun. He built a 305, let me come down here and run the 305 Nationals, and we clobbered them. It was a blast. So the next year, I'm like, hey, maybe we'll get that 305 back out. And he's like, are you kidding me, dude? He's like, we're over that. We're not going 305 racing. And I'm like, why'd you sell it? And he's like, heck no. He's like, I'll never sell that thing. It's sitting upstairs. I was like, what do you mean you'll never sell it? He's like, dude, it did its job. You did your job. He's like, I got 6 305s sitting here. I haven't got nobody to buy a new one yet. He goes, but, dude, since you did that, these guys are calling left and right. He's like, I do that for you and me to have something to do, but also when I help you do this stuff, it's to sell engines, So he's given me a lot of credit to my face and let me know that what we're doing is is for our own fun and stuff too. But he's also kind of using me as an example of what can happen. I mean, if you can take Clint Garner and almost beat Sammy Swindell, everybody in the pits for sure knows it's the engine. You know, there's a lot of racers and people in the stands, or not racers, but people in the stands that give me a lot more credit than I deserve. I mean, the engine that he gives me is a really good piece every time.
All right, we're up against it here. We just have a couple minutes left. You do have a 410 for tomorrow night, right?
Yeah. I seen the dyno last night, and it's crazy. I don't even know how I'll be able to tame it. I need to go get a hold of the Duncans and make sure they get enough water on it for me, because if it's anything like it was Saturday night of the 360 Nationals, I'm going to look like a rookie for sure. But if we get some moisture and, Al's kind of tuned the engine with the camshaft, and, with the fuel, he'll tune it also. But he's going to make it as drivable as it can be, because he knows that you can't give somebody that, some beast that's like untamable. He's got it set up for Clint Garner. It's hopefully it works good.
As usual, you're humble about your abilities, but let's thank Clint here. We want to get out of here before the next session comes, but let's give him a round of applause. Wish him luck tomorrow night.
Thank you, guys.